Welcome to my YouTube channel and to my train room. For this week's project I am going to do something just a little bit risky. Now, I've always been a little bit wary about electronics, mainly because I don't know a great deal about the subject. The one thing I do know is that every component only contains one vial of black smoke, and if you let that out it no longer works. So for this week's project I am going to install a DCC decoder in a locomotive on camera where you can see all the mistakes I make. Let's turn the camera around and enjoy this experience together. Don't go away. I mentioned a few weeks ago that I bought a new locomotive at the Roseville swap meet. It's the Spectrum High Boilered 460. It doesn't come with the chip, so I ordered one of those on eBay and it arrived recently. I also found another locomotive, also by Spectrum, the Russian decapod, this one with sound. So I guess it's time to put them on the layout and check if they work. One thing I did notice is that the wires connected to the engine and tender are way too stiff, and they were lifting up the front end of the tender. That's why it's not in the drawbar at the moment. It's the only way I'm going to be able to get this down the track. So I'm going to have to tinker with it. Looks like the headlight is drooping just a little bit. Let me see if I can break it off on camera by trying to straighten it. Or not. Someone's painted over the number on the cab, which was 1630. So I think I'm going to set it to channel 21 as would be appropriate for a 210. So let me do that and I'll be right back. Well, I've just selected channel 21. It's still not chuffing at the right speed. Of course, I'm going to have to do something about that tender coupling. Find a way to get the wires so that they don't want to derail the tender, so that I can hook it up properly. Alright, one down, one to go. I'll be right back. Well, I have this one on the track. Once again, the wiring harness is so stiff it's lifting the front of the tender off the rails. And straight out of the box, I think that is reasonably smooth. Go backwards. So the next thing to do is to take the tender apart and install the decoder. In selecting a chip, I decided to go with a basic silent chip rather than sound. I have a relatively small room, and too many locomotives with sound really wouldn't be a pleasant experience. My plan is to make sure that I always set up the operating schedule so that there's never more than one sound equipped locomotive running at a time. I've done a few of these installations before, but not for several years, so I really don't remember how to do it. Seem to remember there's a possible snafu with losing the screws inside the tender. Maybe I've already lost that one. That's right. There's some clips at the back which I've got to be careful not to break off. Right, one of them is letting go, the other one is a little tight. Or is it hooking on something else? I don't know. No, it was just tight. I'm not sure whether it goes that way or that way. I don't want to risk shorting it out or frying the board or anything, so I'm going to head up to the computer and see if I can find a photograph of a correctly installed decoder. So don't go away, I will be right back. Well, I eventually found the information I wanted. There is a tiny number 1 drawn on the circuit board here, which corresponds to the number 1 pin, which is the one that has the orange wire in it. So it has to go in this way round. And then I've done a little bit of experimentation and found that best location for the chip is about here in the rear of the tender where it's taller. Also, while the camera was off, I found a screw underneath the front end that allowed the coal to be detached. And there's a gap probably of about 3/16 of an inch where I can get a couple of square inches of sheet lead in there. So I'm going to do that before I reassemble the tender. That should help the front of it to track better. So don't go away, I'm going to find my lead sheet and I'll be right back. Well, I have a piece of sheet lead. It looks like I have room for at least 3 thicknesses, and I'll put it that way I will fill up most of it. So I want to cut 3 strips 33mm long. Okay. I know it's increased the centre of gravity somewhat, but I don't think it's going to matter too much, and hopefully it's enough weight to keep the tender on the track. And we learnt from that this plug is not very tightly attached. I'm hoping it doesn't fall out during service. Let's try bending some of the pins very slightly to put sideways pressure in the holes. Okay, well that seemed to fit a little bit more tightly. Hopefully it'll make the difference. So let's see if this runs. Okay, it seems a little stiff for some reason. but at least the tender is now heavy enough not to be lifted off the track by the wires. Next thing to do is to program it to an address, and since it's an undecorated 460, I'm going to use address 46. And success. The railroad now has 2 new locomotives. Well, I'm going to call that a success. I've just noticed that these 2 tenders are actually the same, so there should be plenty of room to put lead underneath this cold load as well. So I'm going to do that exactly the same as I did it before. I'm not going to bother doing it on camera since you've already seen me making a pig's ear of it the first time. It should go more smoothly the second time. And then I need to do something about these hookup wires so that the drawbar will actually work. And then there's just one more thing I have to do with the 210. My wife was hoping to intercept this parcel and wrap it up for me for Christmas, and she doesn't know it's arrived yet. So I will quickly return it to the box and let her intercept it.